delicious Brian Wilkins, in here with the fresh cut. Look at you, looking fresh to death out here.
Keep it tight. I'm trying to keep it tight.
I see you out here handling your business.
But also, was this scarf situation you got going on Zamboni? Was this?
Oh, you know I live with a scarf. I love a scarf.
You look like you were here to bring knowledge in a very sexy way. This is like sexy knowledge scarf. This is like
on the daily. That's how I get down.
He has an organization. You're gonna have to talk to somebody to talk to him. That's what that scarf says.
yeah. Unapproachable. That's That's what I go for.
Enlightened, refined.
Word. Enlightened in sheets, unapproachable in the streets.
Oh, wait, that's not gonna work very well. You gotta work on that. It's like...
we're working on it. It's a work in progress. All the time. So what's going on with you, Playboy? I haven't talked to you in a while. It's been we had holiday season and all this. It's been a long time. I kind of fell off my game a little bit.
No, I actually think people deserve to take breaks, and I think people deserve to have seasons and times and things where things go. Like,
girl, I have not been taking a break.
Well, that's true. You have been using the holiday to work double hard.
I've been hustling.
But I think we have too much of an expectation of regularity in things when we should have a seasonality approach to things. But no, I've been driving up and down the East Coast. That's what I've been doing most of my time. Got to see a bunch of good friends down in Conshohocken just after the New Year here. Got to see a bunch of wizardy folks in a mansion.
Hell yeah! Shout out to you, Wizards in Conshohocken.
Yep, I'll just call it out. It's Wags. It's Wags.
Hey, shout out Wags. What up, Wags? Appreciate you, boo boo. Ain't seen you in a minute.
Got running around up and down with the family, reminding myself, right, other people don't think the same way I do. And did a lot of time pondering that as I drive around. So that's pretty much what I've been up to.
Good,
what
good.
What did you do? What did you tell people what you did for your holidays? What was that like?
Yeah, well, I've been working. So I guess maybe we should just get right into it. So
Sure.
Typically we do an example reading for a listener. And today we want to do an example reading for me. So we're not going to look at no astrology. Y'all see me do astrology all the time. If you want to see me do some astrology, you can find it on Instagram and all that. But today we're going to feature my man, Delicious Brian Wilkins, doing geomancy for a career reading. We're going to try to figure out what is going on. So what I want here is I want geomancy to give me an opinion on my plan. So here's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you my plan. I'm going to tell you, the listener, my plan. And we will see. Now, you already know that everybody got a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yep.
2025 is about to punch my ass in the face. And so ain't none of this shit about to go down the way that I thought it was going to go down. But I have a plan all the same.
By the way, you just said one of my favorite, like the only more customato thing you could have said than everybody's got plans to get punched in the face is 2025 is about to punch my ass in the face. Like that is what the English language is for. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. That is exactly what it is for. Everybody knew what you meant. Nobody thought it was weird until I just was like, how am I punching an ass in the face? Nobody.
No, I think everybody did that at home. Everybody was like, "No, okay, we'll let it rock this time."
Yeah, so 2025 is coming up. You have some new ambitions, new plans, new ideas running around. Mm-hmm. So I was tempted out of spite to look at astrology, be like, "I've come in with a chart for this," but I'm not.
Sure.
It just would have been awful. So I did run a chart before. So Zamboni's talked to me about his plan before. I'm aware of that. We'll let everybody else in on it in a second. And I did run the chart before we had this conversation just now. Mm-hmm. So I just want to let people know the question I did actually ask was, what does Zamboni need to know about his job plan? Now, I knew what the plan was. That's specific enough to me. We're asking for info and commentary. That's, but lay it out for the people a little bit so we can understand the sort of shape of
Hmm.
what we're going for. By the way, in a reading situation where I don't already know this, where you just given me the question, I
Hmm.
normally go through the geo first and then work our way back to the story.
Oh, is that
Um,
right? Oh,
yeah.
we can do it like that if you want.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. The reason I do that is, and again, it's a little bit of showmanship here, just because I do know a little bit about what's going on. But the reason is that I think there's something valuable in seeing the reading in two steps of like,
Hmm.
this is what the chart just says in an archetypal spirits moving around the board kind of way. And then we sort of then you fill in some details and we're like, oh, we can see how it applies specifically to the situation. So that,
Hmm.
for example, if we get Rubius in the house of occupation, in the 10th house of vocation, that's a bloodletting archetype, right? That could be you becoming a serial killer, or it could be you becoming a surgeon. It sort of depends on circumstance, a little bit. So
Sure.
that's the idea. Um,
All right. Well, do you think, bad boy?
all right. Well, so chart's interesting in a lot of ways. It's not an up and down like things are going to go great chart. It
Sure.
is a has a real good outcome, and there's a lot of really good pieces in it, but it's going to be a bit of a struggle. There's going to be some struggle.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the judgment of the well, first off, the first figure. So where we're looking at you, how you're described, the circumstances in which you're in when you're asking the question, is a missio. So loss. Traditionally, this is a Venusian figure, but this is a figure of sadness, sorrow, in addition to heartbreak, but also like falling in love. It's kind of all of that like Venus flowing out energy,
Hmm.
right? In this case, what I would say is it's a figure of dissatisfaction. Like
Hmm.
you're coming to this from a place where like, oh, I would like to lose the circumstances I am in and approach this in a different way. I am out of sorts with the way that things have been happening. Um,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Now, that figure is immediately tempered in the second house by via the way, and which via automatically changes things around. So the loss becomes gain right off the bat in the way that via is interacting with the triplicity there. So anyway, we can follow this path down, but to keep it simple for folks playing along at home, the judgment is the right witness. What you bring to the event is Letitia, joy, happiness, or in this case, the enthusiasm around a new idea, like that feeling where you're like, I got a plan. My startup is going to make $1,000 million. I'm going to throw things in the air. It's the juggling ball, right? It's the ball being held up. What the world brings to you in this circumstance, though, the left witness, is Tristitia. The world brings, no, you're not. Get in that
Hmm.
well. Like,
Hmm.
get digging. You know what I mean? Is the way that the world has it. So these opposing figures actually make a carcer. They make the prison cell. So when joy meets depression, you see the tower or the cell get made. Now, there are ways to determine like, is that good, is that bad, right? Generally speaking, Carcer's more of a negative figure, but there are lots of circumstances in which Carcer is about building power, right? Where Carcer is a period of isolation or separation to come forth with knowledge. Um, it's also, like, for instance, if you'd ask me about, am I going to get married? Carcer's a positive in a marriage circumstance, right? It's the wedding ring. So in this case of what do you need to know? You need to know that this is a period of study, isolation, building power. Like this path is going to require you to be stuck in that tower quite a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
However, when we look at the judgment, the sentence, so that's the judgment. You're going to be stuck in that tower. What is the result of that? The result of that in this case, when a missio, when loss goes into the tower, what actually comes out is the great good fortune, Fortuna Major.
Hmm.
Like it's a containment. When loss is contained and stored, when you make that sort of like reservoir for the things that have been slipping out, you get good fortune. And not just like good fortune in the sense of making money. That's more like a acquisitio gain. This is like the right life is going to move from this. Like the being in the Tao, right? Like that's
Mm,
the result of this process.
mm,
So I think in this case, with that kind of a sentence, this is actually more, we're seeing Carcer in this case more of the building power tower rather than the you're stuck in a prison and you're screwed tower
mm,
because it gives such a good outcome. Now, we had talked a little bit before we I looked at it about how do we figure out which houses apply here? Because when you're looking at a bigger job plan, you have a couple different things that can apply. You have the sort of sixth house, step by step, what is the job, what are the day to days kind of approach. You have the 10th house, what is the overall vocation, what is my soul's purpose, my public calling. And then, there's issues like money, different. So what I ended up doing was seeing this as a whole chart reading, right? So we have the judgment that tells us what we're doing, and then we have how this plays out in each of the houses. Now we're going to put a primary on the main job-related houses. We're going to put those at the front, and then we're also going to look at the parts. So we have the part of fortune and the part of spirit. The part of fortune is what are the material, physical things I need to do? What is this stuff? Part of spirit is like what is the goal behind the thing? What's going on? The part of fortune is in the eighth house, and it is there with conjunctio, the crossroads deal, the way, right? This is Mercury in Gemini. Okay, like we're going down the crossroads, we're cutting a deal. I think in this case, this literally means you should be doing a crossroads deal. Like I think, like I
mm,
really think this is a like go to the crossroads physically, talk to the
mm,
devil about what you want
mm,
to get done,
mm,
or some equivalent of that kind of arrangement, right? But that, like, if this is your true heart's desire, go and make a deal, like with
mm,
spirit.
mm,
Um, the part of spirit is a little confusing at first. We'll circle back to it. I think I have an insight into what's going on here, but it's Rubius, that bloodletting, that sort of distempered, passionate, addictive quality that's very negative in the fourth. To me, that reads as a dissatisfaction with the overall path of the way things have been going, with a need to really take some like sort of drastic action around the house, around the lineage, around uh, you know, some issues that are happening there. That to some degree, that is playing into why you want to take a different change, right? Like you don't want to. And we also see Carcer showing up in the third when it plays out in the houses. So the idea of like locality, neighborhood, siblings, feeling trapped in that kind of an area, right? And then when we look at that particular triplicity later on, that the third and fourth houses, when you combine those, that makes what gives us the 10th house, okay, in the way that the system is set up. And in the 10th house, what we see is Puer, the boy, or the sword, the knight, the quest. Now, Puer is actually pretty good in the 10th house. It's a fighty figure. Do you know what I mean? Like you're scrapping in the vocation, but it is good for war. It is good for taking heads. It is good for piracy, right? And so I like it in a 10th house position because I like when people have some fire and are willing to be like, I'm sacking cities, man. That's what we're doing these days. We're taking taking the wealth and running with it. In the sixth house, we see gain, straight up and down, acquisitio, gain, which um, Hayden, one of the sources I like to use a lot, says means good health, good servants, good horses, good shit. Like, you know. So, in that sense of like, if we're approaching the sixth house as a step by step maneuver, those step by steps, that's going to give you gain step by step. Like, each of these is going to work in the concept. The other place gain jumps to in the chart is the ninth house of spirituality, education, all this sort of stuff. Particularly good for teaching in that it provides a sort of Jupiterian pull into the ninth house. And
Hmm.
it is a place to gain the favors that you would want to have if you were a priest, a scholar of, this kind of stuff. It's very well figured there. So those two combinations I think are actually really good. The last figure I wanted to check on, and then we'll come back and sort of walk through your plan and how I see it playing into stuff, is the 12th house. What's holding you back? What you don't see coming? What's the restrictions, right? Amicio, the figure in the first house, shows up again in the 12th. Now, Amicio is not always great in the 12th. The old geomancers kind of fight about it a little bit. Some people see it as like getting out of prison. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you're free. You lost the bad things. Some of them say like, no, it's just like you're stuck in prison and you're losing. You're like the person who's like low end on the cafeteria line in prison.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the one exception is when it is sort of well figured, and when one of the things Amicio in the first is good for is prison breaks. Actually, like it's listed out by the old guys as like, yeah, you're going to get out of prison if Amicio shows up in the fourth. I mean, the first. So in this case, with that right next to the 12th, with those being combined, I see this as much more the getting free version, um,
Hmm.
and how those connect. So what I would say though is that the things you can't see, there needs to be there's stuff you got to get free from for this to work. Like
Hmm.
there's stuff that's going to come up that's going to be very restrictive. It's going to feel like it's pinning you down. You got to see each of those as an opportunity for a prison break if you want that element to work well throughout the story. So, to summarize, it's a time period where this path is going to require you to really buckle down
Hmm.
and like be in your wizard's tower. The result of which is going to be a really great good fortune. So, the time is well spent. It's a fighting sort of combat. You're going to have to struggle for the vocation, but step by step, there's a lot of gain to be had along the way. And in particular, in areas of teaching, long-term education, priestliness, this kind of stuff, there's a lot of gain to be had
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
The areas of concern, there's some stuff around the house and the lineage that needs to get purged, that needs to get blood let out of it. And I think the best way around that probably is a physical deal down at the crossroads.
Hmm.
So that's the summary.
Hmm. Interesting. And how does it look for money?
Money, we got Via in the second. Via's not great for money, but it's not
Hmm.
bad. It's just money is going to sort of like meander through a river passage. Kind of think like it's a little bit like you're taking a long voyage to cut a deal someplace else. You're sort of like that, like
Hmm.
Marco Polo trader money kind of stuff. There's a
Hmm.
period where you're
Is
like,
this
I
like
don't
it
know,
take money to make money?
more along the lines of like, I feel like I should have money. I feel like the money's coming. It's not
Okay.
here yet. And
Yeah.
then, but often the money does come. It's river logic when it comes to money. You know what I mean? So money
Hmm.
comes, money can go, but it
Hmm.
is flowing through rather than like being uh finding a pile of gold. It's not a pile of gold thing. But it's not
Hmm.
it's not bad. It's just not like you're gonna get so rich you don't know what to do with it money.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool.
So how did that land for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, cool. So I am in my hometown, which is a place that I don't necessarily want to be, don't want to stay. And so I feel like the feeling of being stuck with like the lineage or that kind of thing, that feeling
Hmm.
of stuckness makes a lot of sense here. And that is part of the plan for sure. The plan is to not go and do other things and move away from this place. And like,
Right.
like part of the reason why I'm here is because it's cheap as hell for me to live in this place. And so it's good for me to buckle down and not do any of the fancy stuff that I want to do and go out and like gallivant and do exciting things and have
Hmm.
adventures. Sometimes get a little bit antsy because I have had so many adventures in my life and I
Right.
have so many good stories of adventure that I sometimes feel like washed up or something to be
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
town in my hometown, just kind of like working a job, And
Right.
so that is the point, is that I don't want to be here working this job anymore, and so I'm trying to get out of this, and so I'm doing new and different career things in order to do that. So it's good to hear, and my new and different career things are connected to teaching and teaching astrology and spirituality and shit like that. So
That gain in the ninth is real nice for the kind of stuff you're talking about teaching. Yeah.
mm, mhm, mhm. Yeah. So it looks like I don't know what, like it's kind of what I thought, which is like it's at least this year 2025 is grind time. And
Yeah.
just kind of shut up. I don't care if you don't like it here, and I don't care if you don't feel like this is your, like, like you need to shut up and do your work and lay your
I will,
foundation.
I didn't mention it, but it, fifth house, house of fun, that kind
Hmm.
of stuff is Cauda Draconis. It's Tail of the Dragon. It's just like, fuck off
Ain't
with
no
your
fun
fun.
happening around here.
Yeah, ain't no fun out. It's fun as ash now. We burned all the ash, all the fun. It's gone.
Yeah.
Um,
Ugh,
so
okay. Yeah.
it's a,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Get on the grind.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
Part of
Everything kind of points to that attitude.
Yeah. 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 I am. I have a lot of Saturn in the way that I get down and in the way that I do my career things and just kind of like generally. I'm like kind of a late bloomer and whatever. And the way that I've been thinking about this is that like you have to build the foundation. And so if I'm going to have like a
Mm.
50-year career or something like that, then I might be foundation building for like 35 of those years. It might
So
just be like more and more foundation.
Carcer is Saturn in Cap.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is a natal placement for me.
So that's one of those like, and that's why you can see with that analogy like why it cause sometimes it's like that's a prison and you're like no no that's my castle. It's kind of like
Sure.
it's a tower. You know?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, so I have already been working on doing astrology things for like 7 years or something like this. And I would like to have built my foundation by now,
Yeah.
but I have not yet built the foundation. I've built the like I don't know, I like have a schematic for the foundation or something.
You built up the skills. I mean, there's a weird difference we don't talk. I was listening to some Mitch Horowitz stuff. Surprise, surprise. And
Sure.
he was talking about some of his advice to writers is people are like, I want to know how to write. He's like, no, you want to know how to get published,
Yeah,
which are two
right.
separate skills. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And to some extent, you've been learning to write, and now
Hmm.
you're in a phase of like, well, how do I get published? You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's just a different that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, so it's grind time out here, and it's time to get to it. I've been thinking about one of my favorite rappers is Parson Fontaine, and he's got this song where he goes, "All that talking that you're doing, it's all a bunch of noise. If you ain't making money, nigga, it's null and void." And
That's
so,
fucking true.
right, and
Yeah.
so, like it's about building that channel at this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I've
I,
been
it's not happening quick, probably.
I've been doing a lot of thinking about that kind of stuff now. You and I talked a little bit about it already, but people who aren't willing to do the work it takes to be powerful or to make money
Mm,
or to get it done, right?
mm,
Because I think you could do this as a like, you know, bodhisattva wander around with a stick and like a robe. You know what I mean? It doesn't whatever your goal is though, the power to
sure.
like get it done, I think is something that people shy away from a lot
Hmm.
and frankly spiritually like whitewash or spiritual bypass, whatever term you like best. But they take a sort of pseudo enlightenment slash escape from the world as a sign that they're doing a good thing. And you're like, well, I mean, that can be a path for people. That's okay, but also like don't complain if the world
Mm,
doesn't look the way you don't want it. You know what I mean? Like you got to get your hands out there and making stuff if you want to actually get it. So, um, making money is one of those things that is about efficacy. It's about,
mm.
being strong enough to get your shit done. I'm curious about because I'm always obsessed with the devil. I'm curious about how this crossroads piece lands for you. What
Sure.
did that make you think of? What did that sort of generate for you?
Yeah. All right. So I gotta start making some better astrology money than I'm making.
Hmm.
And part of the reason why I need to do that is because I need to stop working this bartending job that I'm working.
Right.
And part of the reason for that is not simply because I'm not that good a bartender and I don't care for that profession very much, but
Right.
more but also not more, but also that the spot that I'm working at seems to be kind of a sinking ship.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I have this much time. I don't know how much this much is, but I know
Right.
it is not forever. And so I gotta jump ship by the time this one sinks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when you were talking about like making a deal with the devil or whatever, it's like um, like there's a commitment to that,
Hmm.
a commitment to, you can think about the devil card in Rider Waite Smith, you know what I mean, where you're chained up, you know what I mean? And it's like, all right, is this what you want? It's gonna come with some
Yep.
chains, but like
Yep.
you can have it. You can have these chains if you want them, and so I've been thinking that's what I thought of. It was like a certain sense of like this is the life that I want. I want the life of
Yeah.
astrology and teaching and like doing independent entrepreneur shit. I'm not out here working no job for somebody else. I ain't sweeping nobody else's
Hmm.
floor and all that type of thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to be out here owning my own shit and doing the things that like really matter to me. Like in a way that pouring the booze in the cup is not that interesting to me.
It's an interesting thing too. Like part of the reason I took a day job that is takes a fair amount of my time. Actually, it takes a lot of my time to get through stuff. Is the exact same calculus of given my circumstances and given the things I wish to achieve, I need something that brings in a fair piece of money like
Hmm.
this. Do you know what I mean? Like I needed to kick off at least for 5 years or so. Although I may continue doing more just because I like being powerful enough to help people. So we'll see. But
Sure.
it comes the goals that I have set, the things I went to the crossroads for, came with a set of conditions that I needed to fulfill in order to get them.
Hmm.
And um, being a business boy uh, was the path to get done what I wanted to get done.
Hmm.
And I think that's a good way to frame what is required of you in crossroads deals. I think sometimes people think like, oh, it's you sell your soul and everything happens easy and everything else. No, no, no. It's much more like a commitment to a path
Hmm.
and a willingness to see that all the way through, um, even when it costs you things
Hmm.
to do it. Now, you get a fair amount of boost from that
Hmm.
And I am very grateful and very happy with the deals I have made in order to get where I'm doing and follow the stuff I'm doing.
Hmm.
Um, but there's an honor and a reciprocity that's required, weirdly enough. In some ways I feel like because the devil doesn't let you off the hook, you end up building the capacity to to do what you want to do
Hmm.
in a way that's a little more maybe just more obvious than a path that gives you a lot of grace and forgiveness. You know what I mean?
Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the classic, like, give me patience, and what you get is like a whole lot of opportunities to wait. You're like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah, yeah.
it's not. I wanted I wanted an easy way, not this is the hard way.
I also think that like we do have some good stories about this stuff. Um, you'll talk to artists sometimes, and they'll be like, "Well, to be a real artist, you want to really be top of the line. You got to sacrifice a lot. You got to no friends, no this, no that, and everything else."
Hmm.
I think sometimes it's good to make sure you know what you're asking for. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
if you want to be the number one, you know, musician in the world, then yeah, man, you're gonna have to cut some friendships. You're gonna have to do a whole bunch of shit that is devoted to that task only. If you don't like that idea, then maybe you shouldn't ask for that when you're at the crossroads. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, don't ask for what you don't want. That is for damn
no,
sure.
no, no. And not that you can't ever change or, whatever, but like, gotta kind of make the deal and finish it out. Um, I
Mm.
gotta get a book finished. You know what I mean? I got some things I
Yeah,
gotta pay back.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, the last time we talked, we you had said that you might have a little story to tell. Are you ready to tell a story
Oh,
today?
yeah, I can tell that story actually. I'm gonna be a little circumspect about it because I want to make sure everybody has some anonymity in it. I think, respecting some folks, but I do
Mhm.
want to get into some of my own magic that I did in this circumstance, and some changes I made and things like that that are actually, I think, relevant in a wider what if magic were real kind of context, right?
Mhm.
So, had a situation where a gentleman owed me money, a fairly significant amount of money, um, and for various reasons was not paying me back.
Hmm.
Now, the first approach I took was to try, and I think this is actually a good approach to take generally before you just kind of like go off the go off the deep end with magic.
Mhm.
Is I did a bunch of come and get your boy with his ancestors. So every day at my ancestor altar, I was like, hey, there's a certain amount of time I'm gonna pray for his well-being and his ability to fulfill his obligations. And I'm going to include prayers and merit prayers for his ancestors. I'm going to say blessings for his ancestors with the idea that they will then distribute those blessings in a way that will allow him to fulfill his obligations.
Mhm.
And the 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 thread underneath it was if I don't see the change I want to see by this place in time, then I'm going to do some fucked up shit. Like, you know,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would prefer to resolve things this way. If it does not, I will do these things,
Yeah, we can do it the hard way if you'd like.
Right, exactly. But I really, and I was trying to be very sincere with this kind of spirit diplomacy of like, I really would prefer
Sure.
this nice version. Well, this is where I fucked up. So, got to the point where it was time for me to do the consequences because he had not come through on things.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for a couple different reasons. So whenever you do something hard at people, whenever you come at them hard with magic, you are going to entangle with them to some degree or another. Like
Mhm.
you can't you can't get in a fight with somebody and think you're just going to walk out clean. Like
Sure.
you're going to get tangled up. And
What they used to say in my martial arts class was, "Don't get into a knife fight if you're not trying to get cut."
yeah, yeah. By the way, I had a martial arts teacher who his solution to that was to charge you very quickly, throw his shoulder forward, and say, "Cut me," which was a very disturbing thing because he was like 6'3"
Yeah.
and like a big dude who didn't really feel pain. And you would find yourself being like, ah, with like whatever fake knife you had, and
Right,
he'd beat the
right.
shit out of you. You know, it was, anyway. I think he took that to an extreme that is maybe not good in an actual knife situation. Just as a,
I don't know, man. I think entering is a strong martial move.
I,
You know what I mean?
I will,
Like go in. If
I
you
will say
go
that
in there, then like there's a try and stop me kind of energy to that, which makes you be like,
I
"Ah."
will say I don't think the pause and say cut me, that's the part I disagree with. The
Sure.
but yes, for anybody listening, if you're ever in that circumstance, just go as hard as fucking possible the moment you see that. Just, people
Uh-huh.
tell you to
In
run, people tell you to do this.
immediately.
No, just in as hard as you can,
Hmm.
insane monkey time. Um anyway, but you get tangled up, right?
Right.
And for various different relationships, reasons, things like this, I decided maybe better just to let him go. Consider it the price of doing
Hmm.
business to not have this dude in my circle.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I was content with that for a little while, but I then began having some pretty significant spirit contact, which I'm comfortable talking about, which from a spirit that I'm going to call Zeus Amun. Okay, so that's the ram horned Zeus that Alexander the Great was connected to.
Okay.
Kind of this like hybrid Egyptian Greek, Hellenistic figure. Very much a figure of kingship, very much a figure of the force that gets things done. So this kind of combination of the Egyptian idea of like Amun, the force that does everything, that is what allows anything to be accomplished, and Zeus, the sky god, giver of regality, but also that helps the crops grow, that does all these sort of things. I started having some crazy dreams. Some of my magical partners also had some dreams that pointed me in this direction of contact with this entity, including a shit ton of Alexander the Great stuff coming across my step. Like there was like
Hmm.
2 months where I could not get away from Alexander the Great showing up in my Instagram, in my listening, and everything. This fucker was everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, Interestingly enough, another one of those syncs where I was seeing that, and I got tagged on it again today. It's interesting that you decided to talk about it today.
Hmm.
That spirit is kind of like I'd like to be talked about today,
Hmm.
um, but very much about like what is kingship. And I began having this feeling that I was not fulfilling my duties as the kingly role that I have among my
Hmm.
people by just letting this shit ride.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
my own wealth capacity was limited. There was ways in which this affected other people in my life, slowed down my ability to help people because I lost some money in savings that I would have been able to distribute,
Hmm.
and that I was letting this dude get away with shit, you know.
Hmm.
So, Sue someone contacts me, starts sending me this shit. I start thinking with the spirit. I start feeling this way. Uh, our dear friend Marissa calls me up out of the blue and says, "Would you like wood from a lightning struck tree?" Now, if you're a magician, the answer to that is yes,
Yes.
please, yes.
Uh-huh.
But particularly when you've been dealing with a lightning
Yeah,
god
totally.
recently,
Uh-huh.
you feel like, yeah, maybe that would be really good to do.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um,
Good looking out. Thanks for thinking of me.
yeah, exactly. By the way, if you don't have amazing magician partners and friends, I suggest it. It's really great to be in a network of people who will be like, I feel like you should have lightning wood. Um, so she graciously sent me some, and I picked out a.
Delicious Brian up in here talking about don't hate me because you ain't me.
I think
Continue,
like this.
sir. Please continue.
The picked out a sort of lunar timing based on the lunar mansions
Hmm.
that was good for to do this kind of work. And I set up a situation in which I was writing out my desires, coming into contact with the spirit. It was Zeus bunch of blue candles, opium incense, which for me is very connected to the Jupiterian current, other stuff like that, gold things, just sitting there in the space with this bit of lightning struck thing, writing out a sort of sigilized version of what I wanted to have happen. Now, when I started the operation, my intention was actually just to fucking crush the dude until I got what I wanted. That was
Mm-hmm.
my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But as I began, the spirit was teaching me about kingship. And so I found myself, if you do all the ritual, the prayer, the thing, the light everything up, everything else, the timing's there, the emotions are firing up and you're like doing their shit. I found
Mm-hmm.
myself striking with the wood that was the lightning stroke wood and effectively yelling, let the rain come.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, what the lightning does is it releases the nitrogen into the fields. The lightning clears the path for creation to happen. It adds value. And so that was the lesson as well, that like, no, by doing this violent action, by demanding this reality to have space, by calling in the lightning, this is going to be better for everybody. Like there's a blessing in here that that you weren't aware of when you started, but you gotta get yourself into the space to do it. Another friend of mine was connected to this somehow, right? I don't want to get into too many details there, but he was in more touch with the other guy. He calls me up the next day. He says, "Hey man, weirdly enough, this morning that guy reached out to me. He just heard that he got a better job. He's going to be able to make his payments. He wants to set up a plan to pay us back."
Oh, so he owed both of y'all?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
He's setting up a plan to pay us back. Now, I always include a sort of like payment deal with spirits. And I was like, great. The moment this lands,
Mm-hmm.
money in bank accounts,
Mm-hmm.
Zeus Amun gets a big stake.
Sure.
This is not money in bank accounts. This is a promise to get shit done. This is not that moment. It took about another month or so for
Mm-hmm.
the guy to actually get money in a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
But when that started happening, the very next day I went out and got a giant ass steak and cooked it up really, really good. I actually got two. I like this tech, by the way. I like giving them something that I see as a treat. So like
Mm-hmm.
I totally separate. I like cleaned the pan between the two cookings because they do like to have their own shit. They don't like to touch your shit. You know what I mean? They don't
Mm-hmm.
want your leftovers in any way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I made myself this. I made a steak. Anybody who's interested, I also put a ton of basil for king spice all over it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I took the steak out to the an area where I do some public stuff, and I left the whole steak I had cooked
Mm-hmm.
for Zeus out there. And that's the end of the thing. But I will say, and payments coming in, everything good, all that stuff's in place. But what I like about this, in terms of like talking about magic in public, a lot of times people feel like they're restrained for various reasons from sharing stuff
Mm-hmm.
and sharing operations. And there's good reasons for that a lot of times, right? But this is not a spirit that wanted to be kept secret. This is not a circumstance. I can talk about the circumstance without talking about other people's business by and large. And on top of it, I like that there's a failure in here that's instructive for how do we think about anything.
Hmm.
Like, I got sucked into the idea that I was willing to settle for something I didn't really want because it
Hmm.
made my life easier. But it didn't
Hmm.
actually make my life easier. I had to put up with a bunch of bullshit
Mm-hmm.
in order to feel like I was free or rid of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I accepted that. What was actually better was to, and these will be different for everybody. People have different obligations. But in my case, to take the obligations that I had, hold them up, do the magic, and then not only did that open up the tunnel for, better wealth for me and my friend who was connected, but also for this person. The good fortune I wanted him to have in order to be able to pay us back didn't come through until I did this much more
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, active ceremony. So I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we get a little nervous about like, I don't know, am I fucking things up? Am I calling down the lightning on somebody? What am I doing? You know, and I think that like I almost think in this time and space we should just be doing more of it, just doing more magic and seeing where it lands, rather than trying to think out whether or not it's going to be good before we get out there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so
And
anyway, yeah.
in this scenario, was the debtor harmed?
I do not believe so. It's possible that he did have some like guilt dreams thing, you know what I mean? Like I
Sure.
don't know.
Bad feelings.
Yeah, and my sense of it is probably that did happen.
Mm-hmm.
That may have been happening to him the entire time
Sure.
until the feeling was lanced. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Um,
But it wasn't a
but to my
situation where he like had to go through an ordeal and then on the other side be like, I'm sorry. It wasn't that kind
right.
of thing.
No, no, no. I don't know. I don't know. And I've had operations that have ended up that way, where like people have been fucking
Hmm.
punished for what they have done.
Hmm.
Um, and this did not feel like it landed that way for him. I
Yeah, lightning, is like a is an interesting one because lightning
yeah,
is like it's gonna be light in the dark and it's
yep,
gonna be it's gonna let the rains come and all this kind of thing. But then also like some shit is gonna get torched at the same
yeah.
time.
It is definitely going to get torched. I wonder, honestly, knowing a little bit about this person's background, if some of the bad spirits around this dude, because he was running around with some bad spirits in his space. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, maybe some of those got torched, right? Like sort of in the St.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, we fight against principalities. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
maybe that's actually what was getting torched in that case.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a little lesson here about kind of letting it fly,
Letting it
you know.
fly, standing up to whatever your obligation is too. You know what I mean? And also
Hmm.
like not just taking shit to take shit. If you're gonna eat a little
Yeah.
shit to get free, just make sure you're actually happy with that outcome. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because like, you know, I don't know about you. I don't know how you be getting down, but like for me, I be trying not to fight. I don't want to. I don't want it like that. I don't want to be fighting nobody. Like
yeah.
I got homework to do. Like I don't I don't need all this. You know what I mean?
Well, so that I think it, and I do not. There's a way to read what I'm about to say as a sort of glorification of certain kinds of activity, and I don't mean it that way at all.
Sure.
I've been a fight person since I was born. Like,
Sure. Yeah. Hmm.
you know, I was arguing with nurses. Do you know what I mean? Like literally, actually, literally, when I was a baby, I had,
Uh-huh.
a little bit of baby jaundice. Everybody, some babies get it.
Mm.
And what they do, all they do is they put you like under a sun lamp and they like fix you up. You're out of the hospital in a day. No big deal, right?
Okay.
So they put me under the lamp and they have to put a like a little blindfold on you to protect your eyes because you're dumb. You're a baby. You don't know to shut your eyes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I wouldn't let them do it. Like even as like a 2 day old, I was like ripping the thing off my face. I was like, no,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
like it's just
Uh-huh.
like
You're a fighter.
I'm a fighter. I like to think I've spent a lot of time finding good ways to fight that are actually productive for the community. That are not just about me
Sure.
bashing my head into things.
Hmm.
Um, but if something goes wrong at work, my instinct is to be like, cool, how do I smash the opponent into
Yeah.
pieces? Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's where I start from. So
Yeah. I went to war
the
with a bitch
answer
recently.
from
It was it,
oh
it
yeah,
seemed like it needed to
you
be done.
did you did
What I'm saying is I understand what you're talking about.
you did step in recently.
I
I don't know if
won.
you want to talk about that or not, but you did that work out?
Yeah, I won.
Yeah. Um, so in this time and place, it was right for me to step in as the fighter and do the thing. I was the right
Hmm.
champion in this place. there may be times where I'm not, even if that is one of my main modes. There may be times when I'm like, oh, someone else should fight, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
or and if you're not I mean, the D&D party's right. You know what I mean? Like if you're the cleric, if you're the healer, you don't need to be out there bashing face all day long.
Yeah,
You need to
yeah.
be doing what you're supposed to be doing. And maybe there
Right.
was a
Play
way,
your role.
yes. And let's say you're more the healer type. Maybe that magic I did in the beginning of like, hey, let's repair things. Maybe if
Hmm.
you're more the healer type, that would have worked for you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It didn't
Yeah,
work for
yeah.
me because I need to smash face, right? Like so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Don't sell yourself short out here. You participated in a lot of healing. You've
Well, that's true.
facilitated quite a lot of healing out here. You know,
Although to be funny, I do think of that as kind of a combat too. Weirdly enough, like a lot of times I think of it
really?
as
What
an
do you mean?
exorcism.
Oh,
I
sure. Okay, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Getting
and I
rid of
think
bad
some people,
guys.
yeah, get out of here, bad guys. Fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do, but I think
But
you
that's
raise a
not what we
good.
were doing with intention work. You know what I mean? Like the power
I
base
get it.
shit. Like that's not what that tech does.
It's less of that.
It's strong cultivation energy. You know, it makes things
Yes,
grow.
yeah, yes. One reason you have to be careful with the cancer stuff.
Right,
Um,
right. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um,
Don't I know it?
Although, to be fair, and it's no secret, I've talked about it before every intention group I've ever been a part of and every intention I do a minor exorcism
Really?
for for the protection of the people in the circle. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Huh.
every time.
Huh.
Everybody else is
Interesting.
like, I'd say Choku and I go right in. I'm like, I say this other thing for a couple minutes first, and then I go into Choku. Yeah,
Interesting. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, I mean that's good leadership tech for sure. That's big kingship energy
well,
to be sure.
yeah, well, and so I think that's the other thing. I think another piece I want to say is like, if you do feel called to real kingship, you know, which I do actually think involves real service. It's not about
Hmm.
you being top of the pile. If anything, you're the magnet for the bad shit. You know what I mean? Like you're like,
For real.
yeah, we put you in the
So everybody
fancy
can see you.
outfit. Yeah, exactly. So the spirit goes and eat you. You know what I mean? Like that's,
Uh-huh.
um, but if you find yourself moving through the world that way, you, I don't think you should get a pass to not act like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's why I was personally wrong when I was not acting like a king. It was
Mm.
wrong for me to act that way
Mm. Mm.
um, in that time frame.
Sure. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. There's plenty to ponder there. I did think that you were going to tell me a story about the devil.
Mm.
You told me that you had a story to tell, and you had not told me the story before. So I was working in blind here. So we had
It
been
is
talking
a, it
about the
is a
devil.
it is a horned fella. To be fair, it is a fellow
Sure.
with horns.
Sure. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Actually, the most recent devil stuff. Actually, when I'm writing the book, was
Mm-hmm.
actually about the devil card. It was funny you brought that up because I
I mean,
just wrote
if
a
you say the
poem.
devil.
I know, but I hadn't written one about it yet. Um, and I got really excited because I realized, as you were talking about it too, but I realized in the poem that the devil isn't holding the chains in that card.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah,
devil's
he's
just
chilling.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
it
just
needs some
chilling.
chains, but
Yeah,
like,
and it can be seen as like, y'all really want to be wearing those chains? Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe as you said, and as we were talking about earlier, maybe the chains are what are you chaining yourself to? By the way, what they're chaining themselves to in the Marseille deck and also sort of in the Rider Waite is this black stone, is this void,
Mm.
right? They're chaining themselves to an emptiness, and the devil's showing up being like, are you seriously going to be doing this right now?
Mm.
Uh, is the way I read it, Um, and other people have thought about this before, but the name just went out of my head. The Burley relief, I think it is that figure of the winged goddess with the eagle feet from Samaria. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
she's, yeah. Anyway, the devil card in the Rider Waite very clearly referencing
Mm.
that same image. So in a weird way, that Rider Waite card goes all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia.
Mm. Mm.
Oh shit, I haven't told you about this yet. Um, did I tell you about going to see the Assyrian art in Northampton, Massachusetts?
Mm-mm.
Dude, so in a weird turn of events, I'd taken Wyatt up um, to a rock climbing competition up there, and we got the
Mhm.
times all wrong. Just like it's one of those things where like we thought we were supposed to be there in the morning, we're supposed to be there in the afternoon. Like I got there, like we got up at like 4 in the morning to drive out there to be on time, and
Yeah.
not good, you know.
Uh-huh.
The kid was kind of bummed, and it was raining. You know what I mean? There's like nothing to do. So
Yeah.
I was like, no, 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 we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna go to this art museum, which is on Smith's College, and I'd never been to before. And there was a cool exhibit there about like art and empire and the destruction of things and the destruction of artwork. So during the Second Iraq War, um, ISIS blew up a bunch of these Assyrian palaces
Mm-hmm.
due to colonialism. 200 years earlier, this college had acquired
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
the reliefs, and now the
Yeah.
people at the college were kind of stuck with like, well, first off, because it's a time period where this school and this college were literally like, let's give them back. They were part of that movement of like, we should give it
Yeah.
back, and then they're like,
Uh-huh.
to where?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
it's blown up. Like, what do
Whew.
you do about this? You know.
Uh-huh.
And so they had this
Forward.
main gallery that was like reconstructions of the walls and the friezes and everything else by a contemporary artist working in
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of different media and um, you know, uh, had like propaganda posters he like cut up of like Saddam Hussein in order to like
Mm-hmm.
redo the wall and make, you know what I mean? And like, so really interesting, very difficult to think with, challenging kind of art.
Mm-hmm.
This is the main gallery.
Sure.
We're just trying to explore rainy day shit. I'm trying to take as much time as I can before we have to go back to a rock climbing competition. So we're exploring
Uh-huh.
every single room of this museum. You know what I mean? Like it's just like,
Sure.
what about this picture of hats? And what do you think about this? Why?
Uh,
So from the main gallery, we sort of take a side parlor, and the fucking real friezes are there.
oh, word. Cool. All
Like
right.
the original like Asher Benapal like Assyrian dudes fucking carved this shit,
Yeah.
winged angels, like everything. And like
Sure, sure.
you walk in the room and the spirit of the room is just like welcome to Assyria. And like it's if you're a magician, it's oppressive.
Sure.
It is an empire building
Mm,
terrifying
mm,
presence.
mm,
And the kid felt it. The kid was like, I
mm.
do not know how I feel about these things.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
are
yeah.
old, they're spirits very clearly, they're human very clearly. This is important. I kind of hate it. And we were
Mm,
reading the inscription, the translation of the inscriptions, and it's every grimoire you've ever had. You know what I mean? It's like, I, the king of so and so, that crushed my enemies at this mountain of so and so, that put beneath my feet the people, the weavers of this town, and
mm,
that whom the angels sing of, I, the greatest who have ever lived. Like it just goes on and on and on.
mhm, mhm,
And it was this weird moment of encountering everything that is what we do with magic. Do you know what I mean? Like both the him creating an empire and using the magic of what that is to tell people they should listen to him. The spirits both agreeing with this and disagreeing with this. This dude got axed like not too long after that. You know what I mean?
sure.
The the magic of poetry, of description, of the propaganda of putting this out there, and then
Mhm.
also the weird dispelling counter magic of an extremist Islamic group that just blew it up. Like there's something about like nice idol. I blew it up. What are you gonna do now? You know what I mean? That's also like its
Yeah.
own weird magic. There's this whole vortex of like intense magical things that you can find in a little mountain town in
Right.
Northampton, Massachusetts, for no
Hmm.
particular reason. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like that weird trickster shit
Yes, it's
where
the
there's
devil.
like a whole bunch of power in a spot where you didn't think that you were gonna find it, and then now you're like, well, what do we do with this? And
What do we do?
is there a resurrection coming, or like what's next? You know?
I did really love though the deep discomfort of like one of the wokest places on the planet
Sure.
being stuck with, I don't think we can give this back. Like I don't
Yeah.
like functionally I don't know what to do with this. Was
Right.
really
Right. Right.
interesting.
I think that's one of the most important things that we face in this moment now.
Yeah.
Is that like one of the things that I talk about all the time is the absence of proper traditions and
Hmm.
elders, elders
Yeah.
who understand how things worked, and
Yeah.
we just don't have any of those like channels for ancient understanding anymore.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, then that means that we don't get that anymore. We don't get the old, so you can't send it back because there is no back to send it to. So all you
Yeah.
can do is go forward now. And that is confusing. We don't know how to go forward because we don't know which way forward is. But we do know that back ain't it because you can't. There's no one
Yeah.
to send it to.
Right.
So so all we can do is go forward from here.
Yeah, and there is, because in general, I do think we should send these things back. Do you know what I mean? I do think that's a good idea to generally speaking do this.
Mhm.
Th- but it requires a future in this case. Like as you're saying, like to send this back to Iraq, to the people there, we have
Mhm.
to invest in their future to be in a place where they can have it. Their own past won't do it either, right? No
Mhm.
one's past will answer this question. It's only futures that will answer the question now.
Mhm.
Um, that same artist had a really interesting exhibit in there as well of a what was made to look like was one of those Confederate statues where the general's on the horse, but it
Mhm.
was a garbage bag. It was tarped as if you had tarped over one of those things,
Mhm.
and it was a fan exhibit, so that the fan would be blowing and it would be up, and you could see the shape of it, and then the fan would stop and it would collapse.
Mhm.
And it was this really interesting commentary on like the destruction of something like that and the
Mhm.
willingness to bring it down. It was interesting how it felt different than the freezes. There's something about the that stuff didn't feel special in the way that this ancient stuff felt
Mhm.
rare. Like
Mhm.
we needed to remember that. It's like,
Mhm.
we got a lot of statues of dudes on horses. Like it doesn't feel
Sure.
as important. Uh,
Hmm.
but the artist did a really good job of sort of like, what does it mean to even destroy something like that that we understand is celebrating something that is not good. We're still choosing to destroy it. And again, I think taking on the obligation of destruction in that case, right? Like we take on the idea that we are going to destroy something because we want a better, but again, about futures, right? We're destroying this part of this memorialization of this time period in order to create a better future, um, which is what memory is about. Memory is about better futures.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Also, just in a little funny story, at the end, I used to work as a museum guard. By the way, the amount of people who will try to lick a painting is fucking insane. Nobody talks about this.
Sure.
People cannot keep their goddamn hands off of paintings, and
Sure.
half of them want to lick it. I don't know what that is, but you got to watch it. Um, the girl who was and I say girl because she was like 19 or something, was at the desk when we came back out. It was a rainy, cold day. There was a heater in the building, she was completely asleep,
Mm.
and like we kind of tried to like quietly walk past her to not wake her up, but she clocked that people were walking around her, and she kind of like snapped back up. And I was just telling her a little bit that like, I was laughing that like, I'd done that job. I understand how fucking
Mm.
sleepy it makes you.
Mm.
And I made a joke that, hey, at least we got to see the exhibit of museum guards sleeping at the museum. That's our favorite exhibit, for the whole thing.
Mm. Mm.
But what was interesting was just that little bit of contact back and forth. She wanted to share about her whole day. You know what I mean? Like it
Mm.
created like, so it was this lovely kind of like human moment wrapped in this very artistic, sculptural, you know, separated out place. Um, and I really like when those moments come back into the larger ritual of things. Like when
Mm.
like, yeah, all this is really important, but is any of it as important as a sleepy college student and the stuff she had to get done that day? Do you know what I mean? Like it
Mm.
was good to see both at the same time.
Hmm. Yeah, the real meaning is in the connection
Yeah,
the real people who exist.
yeah, yeah. And when art does that well, when it connects you to real people, it's
Mm.
useful, you know,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
it's beautiful when it connects you to real people.
Indeed, indeed.
I'm giving Zamboni anxiety about art. That's what's
Yeah,
happening.
I don't want to quibble about any definitions right now. I think we're in a good spot here. All right, Brian, tell the people where they can get a geomancy reading.
Oh, come on by wilkinsbryan.com. I'm quite happy to set you up with a reading if you like this kind of nonsense. It's like this every time. And
That's what's up.
uh, I've actually had a couple clients recently. I'm trying to get better about actually keeping it to the 30 minutes, but I get excited about talking about stuff, and so it's usually 45.
Sure.
Um, so love talking to people, love getting into this stuff. It really is a joy to get to play in the infinite and try to help out. Um, and while if you think, wow, this geomancy stuff is fun, but I would like to actually understand how the world works and how the stars work and all this sort of stuff. That's when you talk to Zamboni over there at ZamboniFunk.com and get yourself enlightened, get yourself lit up by the stars in the various offerings he has. We're coming up on one of my favorite times of year, which we're about a month out from my birthday, which is when I get my yearly from Zamboni, and I recommend everyone get a yearly. Maybe not on your birthday, whenever you want. You can do it whenever you want. I just like doing it then because it gets my year straightened out. And I have to say, and I mean this sincerely, folks, my life has improved since I have started getting yearlies from Zamboni. I am much more prepared for the year ahead, and I didn't before, and then sometimes I got surprised by some bad shit. So it's been good. It's been good to dodge some of that, frankly. So
Yeah, the best divination doesn't necessarily tell you the good news. It tells you where the
no,
bad news is and helps you dodge that shit.
yeah, yeah, totally. There was one with the eclipse this year where you were like, please don't go to the gym, and I did not. And I know that's a counterfactual you can't prove. I can't prove
Right.
I would have gotten my ass beat at the gym.
No
But
way
I'll
to
tell you
know.
what, I didn't get my ass beat at the gym, and it was pretty great. It was great to not have that happen.
For sure, for sure. Hell yeah. Yes, beautiful people. Thank you so much for going to welcometobrian.com. Thank you for going to ZamboniFunk.com. Thank you most importantly for hanging out here with us. We super appreciate everybody who be out here on a like bi-weekly or monthly or whatever kind of
A
basis.
seasonal, a
Yeah,
seasonal.
seasonal, on a seasonal basis with us. So thank y'all so much for being here. Peace and blessings, family. Check y'all next time.